Hello, everybody. Welcome to Honey House Chat. I hope you like the new intro film. Something different is my previous film with a bit added on, so it gives you the flavour of what we're going to be talking about. Tonight, I've got a really special guest on, Christine Mcdonald, all the way from British Columbia, who's right up there. The same geographical line actually is Ian Stepler, but I think we're going to find out that her climate is completely different. With no further ado, I'm going to introduce Christine Mcdonald. Come in. Sorry, I was just looking at
right. Hi,
Welcome,
Richard.
Christine. Nice to see you.
I liked that new intro.
Thank you. No, it was an old one I had that it was really weird to explain, but I had another music for it that my daughter did about 3 years ago, and it was great, and I loved it. And then they changed the license on the music, so I couldn't use and the music was all set to it. But anyway,
yeah,
it's done, and it's something else. Thank you. Yeah. How are you? Good.
Yeah, I'm doing well. It's morning here, so I heard you say good evening.
Is it 11 or just about 12?
It's 11 here. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually thought you were an hour further ahead. So, and I mentioned before, you're right on the same level of Ian Stepler, but your position, you are in Terrace?
Yes, I'm in Terrace, which is kind of the far northwest of British Columbia, our most western province. So I'm just about an hour inland from the port of Prince Rupert. Off the Pacific Ocean. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah. And do you get the weather kind of is kind of tainted by the sea nearby still? Luckily, that gives you a bit of warmth.
Yes, definitely.
That is the Pacific Ocean, isn't it?
Yeah, it is the Pacific, and we're much more coastal than Ian is. We don't get the brutally cold winters, but we do get the long days in summer and then the long winters.
Yeah, we have, we'll talk about climate change and how it might have affected you, and I always ask that question, but we're just having day and day and day after day of rain. Today we had 14 mil of rain again. It's so depressing. I need some sunshine. We had one day when I went out and cut some hedges. I was like, yes, I've got something done, but I'm doing my jobs here now. So you've got a set of slides that I know you'd like to show. Would you like to bring them in? That'd be brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you all about what we do up here.
Now let's see if I can make sure we got this playing for you. Oh, right, okay. There we go, right. Okay, well, can you see that?
You can.
I can see that.
You can see
I think everybody can.
Excellent. So this is one of my favorite photos that I have ever taken. A little bee flying to some fireweed. That's the pink flower. I'll talk a lot about it today on summer solstice, just as the sun is going down. And this is about 11 p.m. Where I am. So
yeah.
We're really characterized here by our long summer days and then long dark winters because we're so far north. So in the summer, my bees are flying from about twilight, 4 a.m. to about 11 p.m. So they get a lot done, even though our season is short, being as far north as we are. So here we are. I'm at the Moose here, way up in the northwest of Canada. Where it's cut off here is where Alaska is. And then Alaska actually, if the map were complete, extends down here. So we're kind of equal with the Alaskan Panhandle. If you're familiar with Vancouver, it's right down in the corner of the province here. So it would take me about 16 hours to drive down to Vancouver.
I think that's something people forget is you could say, and I said in the intro that you're just above Vancouver. You're actually a long way above Vancouver.
And I point that out because of the intro there. But like most of Canada's population is down along the border. And I know that you just had Ian on, so I stuck him on the map as well. And he is quite a bit further south in terms of latitude than we are. He gets harsher winters, but not quite the difference in daylight hours.
He just commented on your pic before how nice it was, but I think that's an even better pic, but carry on. Sorry to interrupt.
So we are a small family-run beekeeping business. We have about 200 colonies that we keep in 5 yards. All of our yards, we don't own a lot of property. We live in town. So our bee yards are graciously hosted on farm properties around our small town up in the north. This is our favorite yard and the one that we have had the longest. And we like to joke that our bee yards look like a unicorn barfed in the field, because we do like to keep things colorful.
Looks brilliant. I just love all your supers also painted different colours. The French do that a lot here, actually.
Oh, cool. We actually
Whether it's
did
they're being like really cool and smart, or whether it's because they're just using anything they can find at the dump. I never really worked that out.
We started this as a community art project during COVID. So when we were all locked down, we initially planned to have an open house, and we thought, oh, wouldn't it be fun at the open house if people were painting boxes? And then everything got locked down that spring. And so instead we painted all of our new woodenware white and just asked people to come and pick up a box and return it to us painted.
Wow, fantastic.
And so we got a few hundred boxes all painted by community members, and I love seeing them out there, and people love walking by our yards and picking out their box.
No, that's fantastic that you've got all the community involved kind of straight away, and it's also free publicity, isn't it, when you do that?
Yes, yeah.
And everyone goes, oh, I paint, but do they come back to you and ask for free honey later in the season?
No, we did it a contest style though, so there was some honey given out for different categories for the painting.
Okay, no, it's brilliant. It looks beautiful. That's a really neat yard. No doubt your husband is the grass cutter, or do you all do it?
No, he is the grass cutter. Yes.
That's cool.
I think that's one piece of wisdom or advice I would pass on, is that like there is really no need for bees to live on grass. We have all of our yards set up on these beautiful lawns that need to be maintained, and it's like the bees would be just as happy on gravel. So.
Well, I have some of mine on all sorts. I've got them on gravel, on matting, but what I love about yours is you have fireweed right next to your hives. Just look at that. It's like, wow, it's really cool.
So where we live, we're in the Coast Mountain range. So we're in a pretty small mountain valley with a huge river that runs through. It's a world famous salmon river called the Skeena. So we get tourists from all over the world coming to fish. And it's also a temperate rainforest. So that's my kids in a pretty typical cedar tree for this area. So it's definitely different than a lot of like interior Canada, where you think of like cold and dark. We are very rainy, dark in a different way, but a little more gray and wet. But one of the most unique things about it up here, being in this little valley, is that there is no, oh, there we go. And it rains a lot, especially right now. One of the neat things about being in the valley where we are is that there is absolutely no commercial agriculture anywhere around us for about like 300 kilometers would be the nearest like crop fields. And so our bees are really on wild forage, which there is a ton of, and in backyard gardens. Because we're quite coastally influenced, we're able to grow fruit trees up here, which at this latitude is unheard of anywhere else. But because of our coastal influence, we have cherries and apples and pear trees. Almost every household has a couple fruit trees in the backyard. And so the bees definitely rely on that in the spring. And other than that, it's wild forage. So a few examples here on this slide, but really fireweed is kind of our bread and butter in this area. So I think it goes by a different name where you are, Richard. Do you call it, oh, I've just forgotten it.
You know what?
Willow herb?
Willow herb. That's exactly it. But I'm not sure if it's the same actual variety, because it's the same thing as goldenrod, where there's like 250 varieties, but a lot of them are virtually the same, but there's a lot of crossbreeding. And I think what you've got there is very slightly different. But I've got photos of willow herb in Wales, like unreal. It looks just like that. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, I wonder if it gives nectar in the same way, because it's such a coveted honey plant here, and I only ever hear of it spoken of as a weed by people in Europe.
Well, that's why I wanted to get you on, because this is what I find so fascinating, is where you are specifically. There used to be a guy on a beekeeping forum I used to follow, and he lived right up further than you, but still got fireweed, and he used to tell everyone about the fireweed, and I was so intrigued to know more about it. I obviously will have to visit sometime, but or the area, but yeah, I'm just intrigued by this, because it's such a. How long does it flower for, roughly?
About 6 weeks,
Wow.
and it's a very tall plant, like, it will be over my head, you know, when you walk through a field of fireweed, it's well over your head, and it flowers from almost waist height up to your head, and it starts
Wow.
at the bottom, and, you know, the bottom kind of quarter of it will flower, and then just as those flowers die off, then the next bunch will come out. And so by the time it reaches the top of the flower and is spent for the year, it's been a good 6 weeks of nectar production. If conditions are right, it's also a very fickle plant when it comes to
Right.
getting a crop of honey off it, but one that is so worthwhile chasing. We'll never stop kind of going after the fireweed honey, and it's named that because it grows in areas where there has recently been a big forest fire, where obviously there's plenty of that in Canada. Because we are in a pretty wet part of Canada, it's less because of forest fires where we are and more because of clear cut logging. So after they've
Okay.
logged an area, a few years later, fireweed is what regenerates, and it kind of prepares the soil for whatever next generation of
Yeah.
trees is going to come up there.
If you have a forested area, then so there's very, very little firewood. You need like the open areas for it to develop.
Yes, open and
Okay.
disturbed. So it you can't plant it. Like, if you tried to plant it just in a field, it wouldn't take very well. It
Yeah.
really needs that, like, deep soil disturbance, is what makes it thrive. And it's gorgeous. So here,
Wow.
this is the same mountain background, but you can kind of
Yeah.
see the extent of the fireweed through. This is a cut block. This one is probably a 5-year-old cut block, which means they logged it about 5 years ago.
Okay.
It takes 2 to 3 years for the fireweed to really get good. And then you've got about 3 years of good fireweed before you have to go and find a new spot. So we're constantly rotating fireweed yards. This is separate from where we keep our bees for the rest of the
Okay.
year.
Because you're
But
technically migratory then, aren't you, in the summer?
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
for 6 weeks in the summer. We take them up. We have to build, I think, oh, there's just another one. I do have a slide coming up of our bee yard up there. So we take them up and we build a bear fence around them, because obviously up in the northern mountains is grizzly bear and black bear habitat.
Wow.
So everything has electric fences around it, and then we leave them there for the 6 weeks that the flow is on. This particular yard is about a 2-hour drive from our house up along, like I showed, there's the rough mountain road. So it's quite a haul with the bee trailer on. It's a lot faster to just pop up and pay them a visit.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine. Do you get like almost unlimited space when you're up there? They're not like a queue of beekeepers behind you going, "Sorry, we're here this year," kind of thing, you know?
No, we're the only like, we only have 200 hives. I'm using commercial very loosely here, but we're the only commercial-ish beekeeper for about 300 miles around.
Yeah.
There's one like
Amazing.
in the next big town over.
I've
So
just got a question come in saying, "Do you sell your fireweed honey in Vancouver?" Well, you've got an online store. We'll come to later, won't we?
yeah, we do. Yeah, I will come to that later.
Yeah.
But you can order it online, but not in Vancouver. And I'll kind of talk
Brilliant.
about why we made that choice
And,
as we
and, and
go.
another quick question. When
Mhm.
you said you've got about 3 years after the fireweed's established, is that because they've already planted saplings in and they start to take over
Yes.
where they plant? I see. Yeah, we get
Yeah.
that similar here. We get forests of just plain, not cypress, but just timber places. I can't, pine. I can't remember what it's called, but
Yeah.
then they'll clear it, and you can get in there and have great apiaries. And then within 3 or 4 years, it starts to get all, and that's obviously exactly what you're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah.
But at
Yeah.
least you've got the diversification to be able to move to other places, and you've got plenty of
Mhm.
forage.
Yeah. Yeah. And even this one, like, the expanse of land up here is really wild. So where this bee yard is, like, even once this is grown up, our bees are probably still in range of another 2
Yeah,
fields just like this, that
yeah,
we
yeah.
don't even have to move them because there's always more
It
logging
sounds a bit
going
like
on.
the heather
So
you get in Ireland and England
yeah.
and Scotland, where you might not put your hives to the heather, but often they can still reach it and
Yeah.
they still come back with it. But to have the same as my buckwheat, to have the best quality, you want your hives right amongst.
Yes.
To get and it's easy for the bees, isn't it? It's less foraging. They'll just forage within 200 or 300 meters, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, this one we have our yard very close. I mentioned that fireweed is really fickle. Part of it is temperature dependent. So bees won't start to forage. Well, it's that the fireweed doesn't give nectar until it's about 23 degrees Celsius, which I know a lot of people deal with much hotter temperatures than that, but at elevation and how far north we are, we don't often get long stretches up high that are above that all summer. So it relies on a pretty nice hot summer.
Yeah, I'd say that's quite high in terms of other plants, because we are similar. We get a flow on the rapeseed, the canola at 17, 18, but it has to be perfect conditions. It's not till it gets into the 20s that it really starts pouring in. And, I bet you're like sometimes just like looking at the weather every day, like it must be a nightmare.
Yes.
I can imagine the stress you go through once your hives are up there.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I've gone up, early in the morning when I know it's going to turn into a nice day, but it's still quite cool in the morning. And we'll see the bees on just this tiny little bit of clover along the road. And then as soon as the temperature kind of the sun hits and it warms up enough, then they're on the fireweed. But we have had years that are just cold and wet, and you can be standing in a field of purple and the bees are not on it and they're not able to harvest. And we've actually, when we were really new at this, we had a yard that was starving because we didn't realize what was happening, that we're surrounded by fireweed, but they're not able to get anything from it.
That's what you call the beekeeping learning curve, isn't it? You learn quickly.
Yeah, I think that was the pit of despair that we were in that year.
Because you started I was looking up, you started in 2016?
Yes.
10 years ago, and so it's your kind of 10th anniversary. Brilliant.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Yeah. We do everything the hard way, which means that we have never invested a whole pile of money in anything. A lot of our stuff has come like hand-me-down or secondhand from a commercial beekeeper who has gotten out of it since we started. And so all of I'm always jealous of Ian's truck, but we do it with arm power for now.
Well, I think it's all about getting a balance, isn't it? And when you have got tools, you've got that hive lift there, which does make it enables you to shape your back correctly when you're lifting, for sure. Whereas even if you're lifting a hive with two of you, you've got to get underneath it, where that is even better. So you might not think so, but I, as an external, I think that's, it is what it is. I think you've got the trailer, the nice height as well. Your trailer isn't high. So when I move bees in my truck, sometimes you've got to get them way up high to get them on the truck, and that's a good size, good height there.
Yeah. So this is a trailer loaded up to go to the fireweed yard. And we have found, I think there's almost 2 yards on this, or a little more than 1 yard on this trailer. We've found that kind of the sweet spot is just about 40 hives in a yard. And anything more than that, you start to see diminishing returns in terms of honey. So even if we're accessing, one huge area, we'll put 2 separate yards a couple kilometers apart. And they seem to do better that way.
That is quite sensible as well. And also for other insects, as we've talked about in other videos, where you can have your bees there, and even though you think there's plenty of forage, there is only a certain amount, and there's enough for your hives, but you kind of don't want to overload the area,
When I work up in here, I'll often go check on these ones on my own. My husband, so beekeeping is my full-time job, has been since 2018. My husband works full-time, and then this is his second full-time job, but basically, like, during the days, it's what I do, and I work solo. And so when I'm up in these fireweed yards that are so far removed, one thing that you do in Canada for bear safety is you constantly call out. So I'll be in the middle of all these hives, working them from the back, and I'm nonstop yelling, "Hey bear, hello bear, stay away bear." And that's part of, just making noise so that they're not tempted to come towards you. They
Okay.
stay
And
away.
I suppose if they did, they might be startled, and that's when you could have a problem. Is that
Yes.
right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So you try and just constantly make noise to let them know that you're there. We will, so far, touch wood, in this area, our fences have held up well, and I'll go up and it's really common to see like bear scat and bear tracks around the outside of the fence, but they don't get in. In other areas, we have had them go through our fences before, and it makes quite a mess. But we've learned how to build a good fence now, and not to cut corners. So we do use like full wooden sunk posts
Yeah.
on all the corners, even in our temporary yards.
Do you have, so say you're getting a new yard because the fireweed's looking pretty good there and you think you'll be there for the next few years. Have you ever like established a place where you'll just put decent posts in at the start, knowing you'll be back the following year kind of thing?
Yes, we do. Like
Yeah.
this one will stay here for the 3 or 4 years that we
Okay.
are there. Even the pallets will stay on the ground. People use it. They love it for like their hunting camps, and they'll
Yeah.
even energize the fence and have some protection when they're up in that area hunting. We take our energizer down, but the rest
Oh,
of
I
the
can
fence
imagine.
stays
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Have you ever actually seen then? Do you often see bears in the distance? Well, every now and again, or?
Often on the drive up. I'm a little too like surrounded by bush to see much
Okay.
like in the distance from here, but I would say every time I drive up there, I see at least a bear.
Oh, wow. Oh, so they're
Usually,
kind of around all the time.
yes, yeah.
All right. Okay.
Usually a moose. There's a beaver that has built a dam that crosses the road once in a while just down the stream. So we're very much in a wildlife thick area
Wow.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then this is what fireweed honey looks like. So it is a very, very light colored honey. It does vary a bit. In a super hot, dry year, it can thicken and darken a little bit, but in a perfect year, it's water white. They call it the champagne of honeys. It's very like light and bright flavor to it, quite unique.
And when it's coming in, sorry to interrupt, does it come in like really liquid sometimes, and then it's a bit like rapeseed or canola? Is it fast arriving when it really goes?
It comes in really fast when it's on,
Yeah.
and it flips like a switch, and they'll go from, why aren't these guys doing anything? Usually on my first trip up there after we've put them in, I start to question everything and think that, oh, this is the year we get nothing. And then you come up the next time and they will have filled a super in like 3 days since your
Wow.
last
Yeah.
trip. So when it starts, it really comes on fast. And the consistency varies a lot with the weather. We've had it right at like 17%, and then we've had it as dry as 15%, which is really tough to extract.
Yeah, I've had that as well. You've literally got to spin it, and it's just so thick, the honey.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I was trying the year that it was that dry, I was still using strainers into buckets. And it was like trying to strain pudding. Like it just was not going through. I had everyone wrapped in a heat blanket just trying to get it to strain.
Do you use a warmer to help strain now? Do you find
we
that
have a
that helps?
clarifier now? We have a clarifier, so
Okay.
it kind of does a lot more at a time, lets the stuff raise
Yeah.
to the top, and then we pump off the bottom.
And while we're on the subject, we just had a question come in. Does it crystallize like real quick, or once you've got it, is it fairly okay?
Yeah, fireweed is one of the slowest crystallizing
Wow.
honeys. So
Okay.
it will often last like all through the winter. The stuff that I have bottled right now it's starting to get a bit of cloudiness to it. So I bottled it in September, starting to look a tiny bit cloudy, but it's still not set.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That's brilliant. Thank you.
So here's kind of what we extract in a year, just the difference between how clear the fireweed is. Then we usually end up with some kind of middle color wildflower, and then we get a really dark honey in the fall, and that's what's behind the bee in the photo here. And it's from a plant called Tansy, and I never even thought to show a picture of it because Tansy is just something that we love to hate. It's a terrible weed in our area. Its Latin name is actually something vulgaris, like it's an unpleasant plant.
I've heard of it, and I've looked it up before, and we do have some kind of tansies in Northern Europe here.
Yeah, but it produces this really, really rich dark honey that people love. So we do harvest it and keep it separate. We also harvest it because we have learned that it's very hard on bees' guts. So the dark honey, it just has a much higher mineral and ash content. And up here where our bees can't even get out on a cleansing flight for 2 or 3 months at a time, sometimes it can just be awful for their guts. So
in terms of your actual nectar flow, when do you usually start to see the fireweed? It looks like it's one of the first to flower, is it, or is it later?
No, fireweed is a little bit later. So we don't do a spring harvest, mostly because we sell nukes. So we break all of our hives down, and it means we miss that spring harvest. And then we rebuild just in time for the fireweed flow. So fireweed is from about mid-July to mid-August in there. And then the tansy comes on in mid-August and can last into September. So the dark stuff is kind of at the tail end of the year. So
do you do 2 pools of honey, probably, or you just do a fireweed? Or
we have yards in different places. So we don't time it like we don't take the fireweed off the bees and then the tansy off the same hive. When we take the fireweed off, those bees are done for the year because it's mid-August. And then at the same time, we pull the tansy and we just keep them separate in the shop. But they're coming off different hives. So the bees that go to fireweed only make fireweed. The bees that stay down in the valley only make
I'm with you now. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. It's just trying to put it all together, and I can see how it works for you now. It's good. Yeah.
So all of the stuff that we produce, we sell direct to consumer. And that has worked really well for us. Part of our advantage here is that we are the only beekeeper for quite a ways around. So when we show up to our local farmers market, we're the honey people. We also make a nice range of beeswax candles and some value-added products with our honey. So Tavis, my husband, I think in another life would have chosen to be a chef. So he's come up with a range of hot sauces that all feature our honey. And we do some honey vinegars and stuff as well.
Fantastic.
And then as we approach kind of the Christmas season, then I do some bigger markets and fairs.
Yeah, I think it's a really great thing that you kind of harvest your honey and you sell everything in the markets in the area that you produce as well. It's wonderful.
Yeah. And part of that is that I want local people to have access to local honey. Someone asked if we sell in Vancouver. And we don't, not to say we never will. I think at some point we might reach a point where we're collecting more fireweed honey than we can possibly sell to our local market. So far, it's quite amazing how much they will go through. But the price difference, like fireweed sells for a premium. There's more work, there's transit involved. It is a specialty product. And so the price reflects that. But the price that we sell it for in our small northern town is about half of what it would get in Vancouver or in a bigger center. So if you go to like Granville Island, which is a famous little shopping area in Vancouver, you would be buying the same product for about double the price. And that comes back to like, could I get more for it if I sent it away? Possibly, but I really think that local people deserve to have access to good quality local honey. And so far the people have done a really great job of supporting us and our family. So we leave it there for now.
No, it's a great story, a really good story that you've done. You started up and I like the fact you're in an area that is basically agricultural. What the question of organic for you, just roll this into the equation, and I'm sure you're going to go, here we go. we can't call our honey organic, even though we don't technically give any treatments until the honey's off, blah, blah, blah. You know how it is.
Yeah.
But are you in an area where you could get your honey classed as organic?
In Canada, it's possible, but it's a lot of work to prove, you know, the radius around each of your bee yards, where they can go and where they can get into it. To be honest, I haven't felt the need. I think, again, if we were trying to market to a broader audience outside of our local area, it might be worth pursuing. But people have a pretty good understanding where we are of what our bees are foraging on, and it just hasn't been a question that people have put to us a lot. I think
And
they
it's
know
just,
that.
I don't mean to, inquire, but I'm just interested because there's always the questions for me like, oh, your honey's obviously organic. Isn't it enough to say, well, technically it isn't?
Yeah.
And it's an
I
interesting
know.
that all beekeepers have to deal with, because we just can't make it any more organic than it is, but we try our best to get 99% of the way there,
Yeah, I know. And then trying to convince people that, like, it's probably better than what you're getting on the shelf that they call organic.
Yeah, and we've also learned now to educate people to read the label. And I say to people, don't buy my honey if you don't, if you don't want, don't buy it, but always buy from a beekeeper.
Yeah.
Then you're halfway there.
Yeah. So the other part of our business is nuke production. So this is kind of like the fall, money maker, where a lot of our income comes from the time that we harvest in August until Christmas time. Often we'll have at least some honey that comes through the year and gets us through to the next harvest. But we don't have like necessarily the full range of sizes and products that everybody wants. But then the other piece of our income comes from nuke sales in the spring. So within Canada, we're in a pretty sweet spot for overwintering bees because of the coastal influence. It doesn't get that cold. Our winter's probably a month shorter, especially on the spring end, than places even a few hours inland. And we have just done, touch wood again, a really good job of figuring out how to keep our bees alive through the winter. So we produce nukes that serve kind of the whole northern half of our province, all the beekeepers, and I will do a run. We deliver up to about 6 hours away is my furthest delivery run that I do in the spring. And this is, you can see the truckload of nukes that I took over there last year. But it's another really important part of our business model.
Those boxes, are they, obviously the wooden ones are homemade or beekeeping ones, but the high butler ones that they are?
Yeah, these are called pro nukes.
Okay.
And they're just a transportation thing. Like, they're far too vented for bees to actually live in. But it's nice. We'll get some of them back because people just don't want to hold on to them. But they're a little easier to give away than giving away the wood ones.
I totally agree.
All the time. Yeah, but we do a lot of bee moving because it's our springs are not warm enough or reliably warm enough to let the nukes build up in these.
Yeah.
So like we pull them out of hives and they go into these plastic boxes, and then they go into their wood nuke boxes, and we introduce a queen and they hang out there, and then they go back into the plastic boxes, and it's a lot of moving bees.
It is, but nukes is a good way of one of the ways of a bit of swarm prevention as well.
Yes.
And it's a people. I used to produce just queens, and then I worked out that, hang on a minute, if I put a load of bees around it and on put 5 frames, it's like price, multiplies by 6. You know what I mean, or whatever. But I think selling nukes is a really good way, because also you've got those nukes in your yard if you have a lot of losses, and as much as it's horrible. That means you won't lose your summer. You potentially won't lose your summer crop if everything goes belly up.
Yeah,
and it's the best sustainable model there is to make your own nukes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just a quick thing. Sorry, I see a nuke. So I was going to ask you, what type of frames do you use? Are you Langstroth?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel the same way about queens. I can't bring myself to sell, like I do if someone's in need, but I
Yeah, yeah,
can't bring
yeah,
myself to sell a queen for $50 when I can put her in a nuke and her value goes way up, whether I'm
yeah.
selling her or whether I'm keeping it. Um, it just never seems like it doesn't seem economically to make sense to me to just sell a queen. I
No,
think the
no,
scale that you work on needs to be pretty huge in order for it to be economical.
absolutely.
You asked about spinning. So again, I'm so jealous of your nice new big honey house. We have over the years acquired kind of like one piece at a time as we upgrade things. So this is where we're at now. We do have an electric uncapper that I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with, because it really only uncaps like the fattest frames, and I usually end up cleaning up a lot of them by hand anyway.
Yeah.
I love this uncapping table, and that it will hold 20 frames so that I'm ready to put them in the extractor as soon as the previous load is done. So
Sorry, how do you decap into your big table there? Do you just use a decapping knife, or do you use something else?
I just use the fork. Like
Okay.
if it doesn't go through the uncapper, or if it
Yeah.
comes out and it's still partially capped, I prefer just the fork. And I've got pretty quick at it. We have a wax spinner
Right.
that we put all of the cappings in, and that was one of the first pieces after the table. This was the next piece we bought. And I would say it gives us back about 10% like more honey.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I found that one paid for itself really quickly, the wax spinner. And then we've got a 20 frame extractor, and it's in behind here so you can't see it, but empties into a clarifier and then is pumped up into a big tank.
Okay. And when is your general extraction period?
By the 1st of September, I'm extracting. It varies a little bit, but sometime between kind of August 20th and the beginning of September. And then it takes a while because it's, a 20 frame extractor, and we're extracting honey off of 200 hives. It's a good like month or so of work. We are so lucky to live somewhere where we don't have wax moth or
Really?
small hive beetle. Yeah.
You
So I
don't have
get,
wax moth in your hives? Not
we
one?
don't. Nope.
That's incredible. I
Yep.
think there's supposed to be 1,000 beekeepers out there now going, what?
I know. I know. So we can bring all of our supers into the shop and stack them in the shop, and I can just work away at them. There's not a rush to get through them because we're worried about beetle or wax moth. So we're cheap. My dad helps me, and I pay him in honey and hugs. And the two of us just spin away and listen to good music for the month of September.
Yeah, it's funny though. Do you find that when you're nearly ready to extract, you like are very hesitant to actually go, right, we're going to start today, because you want
Yes.
everything, because you know that from the month onwards it's going to be a complete disaster everywhere. There's going to be sticky door handles.
Yes.
There's going to be
I
I'm the same,
know.
even though I've got an all singing, all dancing new honey house, it still gets mess everywhere if you don't know how to handle it. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
right, we're going to wait. And tomorrow's the day I'm starting, because this is ready, that's ready, and not before,
Yeah. Oh, I know. And oh goodness, I'm going to get in trouble. Dad, I love you so much, and I thank you for your help. But seriously, I don't understand how he dropped so much honey on the floor. Yeah, it is.
I learned about that very thing because when I on my previous, when I used to use another workshop, I had a guy used to be a professional with like 400 hives, and he did a lot himself and moved a lot of hives around. And when he came in, he knew when I'd been in because the door handle was sticky, and he knew because he'd seen where I'd spilt it on the floor and then walked it everywhere afterwards.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is what I do after. I'm very careful now. And I've learned like simple things like a warm bucket of water with a cloth in just straight away.
Yes.
Just get it up straight away. Otherwise, you will forget where it is and
Yeah.
you will walk in it.
Yeah. For the flooring, we're just in a big warehouse space. And so half of the floor is just kind of bare cement, like where we have our storage and everything. And under our extraction line, I just go to like a home wear store. I don't know what it would be called. Anyway, I buy like an end of vinyl flooring
Yep.
for cheap, and I just throw that down underneath all of the extraction lines. So every year I have like a brand new floor that's a lot easier to keep clean.
Yeah. I think that's a really smart idea, because when I was at my old workshop, we used to use the cardboard, the pressed cardboard inserts that come in bottles on crates on a pallet, and you just line them out all over the floor, and you build them up, you collect them over the years, and it doesn't matter what happens then, because when you lift them up, it's clean underneath, and you can just chuck them outside. In my honey house now, even though I've got technically a resin floor, it's actually a little bit fragile, because the underneath is a composite for the underfloor heating, which isn't even working yet. But the top is a resin, so if you drop something hard, it cracks it. So I've got to actually protect it, and I learned that last year. So, and as it happens, by covering the floor over, it actually makes a lot less work. When you finish, you just take it outside and wash it on the slab out. So it's a doddle, you know. Yeah. So I'm putting more down this year myself.
Nice.
But also, is all your gear there Maxtant? You use basically? It's kind of the local.
I think the extractor is Dadant.
Okay.
And it was not. We don't really have direct access to any of them. It's all US based. So most of what we got has been used, and we've bought secondhand, because it's expensive to get stuff to us. Anything. We're so far north that every pallet of gear that we buy, whether it's jars or bee equipment, costs about $1,200 just to get it to us.
Yeah. Now you're beginning to paint the picture now of why, why you do what you do in the way you do, because I don't think we appreciate how far north you are.
Yeah.
I've just got a comment here from Ian Stepler. He said, "Did you pay your father in honey and hugs?" Did you say that?
Yes.
I think he's thinking that of his own kids. Work him as well.
Yeah, you tell your kids that they should be working cheaper.
Okay. Carry on, sorry.
Okay. As far as production, again, very jealous of Ian and his like stacks and stacks of honey supers. Our averages are a lot less. I would say if I had to give a year-over-year average per hive honey production, it's probably around 70 pounds. But it varies, and it really depends on how that fireweed flow goes for us and how the weather holds out. So our best year, which really stretched what I could do in our extraction space, we got about 14,000 pounds off of fewer hives. And then last year was our worst year ever. We had twice as many hives and got like a third of the honey. So I think our average last year was about 30 pounds per hive once it all got out. And it was pretty depressing to be uncapping like partial frames or 2 frames per box.
I totally agree with you. And there's nothing worse than putting loads of frames on when you think it's going to be a good flow and everything looks right and it isn't, and you get loads of partial frames, and a lot of them aren't capped. Admittedly, a lot of the honey is still fine because it's been dried, but oh man, it's such a lot of work, and it's so depressing because you've got loads of supers and no honey.
I know. That was it last year too. And we always we throw supers on right around August 1st, and then we take a 2-week vacation as a family. And so we're always a little optimistic, you put an extra super on just so that they're not jammed for space while you're away. And so we had too much space on them last year, and just exactly like you said, there's like a frame or 2 frames in this box and 1 frame in this box. And what a pain to get it all extracted.
It is. It's kind of, you feel that you've been like, well, I always say that's a gamble, because I have this discussion regularly with my mate beekeepers, and we say the flow looks good, so I'm going to do 1 visit today. I'm going to put one with the 1 extra one on because it looks good, and you come back and invariably the extra one is empty. And it's sometimes better just to be prudent. And there's nothing better in a year when you go and you get 2 full boxes off your summer flow. We get chestnut and bramble in June, July, and that's our last flow. And if you do get there and it's full, it's such a lovely feeling when they are full and they haven't swarmed. You're like, oh, thank you. You know, it's like,
Oh, I
it's the
know.
bonus, isn't it? It's just, it's like lush pickings. I kind of think you say, you know, pickings for all, is this, you know, that kind of thing.
When you
Gets
crack
in there.
that lid and there's like a bit of honey drizzles down off the lid, and you just know, yeah.
Absolutely.
We do a lot of this. We spend a lot of money on bee feed. So when we pull our honey mid-August to the beginning of September, then we go right into feeding because there is just nothing left. You can kind of see in the background here, like the clover has gone brown. There is nothing for them in the fall. And we feed until the bees are not flying anymore. So that, again, because winter comes on a little slower, we're coastal, sometimes we're feeding for the entire month of September and into October. This Big Bertha is our feeding machine. It saves us a lot of time, but she's thirsty, and she'll take about 2/3 of a pallet every time we fill it up. So
so then you've got to mix your syrup at home as well in buckets or drums. How do you do
no,
that?
this thing will mix it.
Oh, brilliant.
So yeah, we just keep the pump running and it has like a return.
Yeah.
And the agitation will mix it. A 1-to-1. It's a little bit harder to do anything thicker than a 1-to-1. But it mixes 1-and-1 really well with just cold water from the hose. So we stack it's a much easier as a 2-person job, one person hauling bags and the other one dumping them in the top here. But then it's pretty slick if you have 2 people on it.
Where do you get your sugar from? Do you get an agricultural merchant you can buy it from, or?
No, we shop around grocery stores here. Again, like to get it from an agricultural source would require shipping it to us, and the cost would outweigh any savings there. So we try and get it on, you know, the best sale that we can find shopping
And
around.
buy it in bulk as well.
It's expensive. Yeah.
I think it went up a lot the year before last, didn't it? And it's come down a little bit for us.
It actually went down a bit.
But no, I love the setup because I know you said, oh, we haven't got much gear and we make do, but that must be a really great thing for you to use.
Huge time saver.
Yeah. And how long is the tube on it for delivery? You got like 20 meters or something?
Even longer. It's 100, it might be 120 feet.
Wow.
So we can run like the whole way across a yard. Because we have to set up bare fences on everything, our yards kind of have to be square. We can't have the long drive through yards because it's not as efficient to build a fence around
it. Absolutely.
So the hose becomes important because we can't just pull up next to a hive. You have to really like run the hose out. So yeah, nice to have the nice long one on there. Here's a little glimpse of our winter. Again, it can be so different. And I feel like even, you mentioned climate change at the beginning. I feel like even in the 10 years that we have been keeping bees up here, we've seen a change in winter where, you know, these were our first winters where you can't even, we had to dig out the hives. And now we see a lot more of this and a lot more rain, or we'll just have snow for a short period and then it'll get washed away. I still hope we get a couple snowy winters in the future, but it varies. We do insulate our hives and we use a variety of different kinds of insulation. We've never fully committed to one because I just don't see a big enough difference to be worth the financial investment. So we use 3 different things currently, and then when we overwinter nukes, we have them in these polystyrene nuke boxes that don't need to be insulated at all. So we love these, except I do find them a pain. We got these through a grant first to test a bunch of them against wood. So we had sensors in them all winter and looked at the temperature and relative humidity. Then we were able to show how much better it was for wintering. So we got a grant to get a pile of them. Love them for winter, but I really prefer working bees in wood better. So we'll sometimes bounce our bees back and forth
What about polyhives versus rodents and stuff like that? Any problems there?
These ones have a pretty nice little mouse guard like built into them on the
Yeah.
front. So we haven't had mice get into them, but I wouldn't say we have a huge rodent problem. Like a skunk or a raccoon or something would be more likely to dig their way into it through the side.
Yeah.
But we don't find anything from mice.
Right. Sounds completely idyllic, utopia for keeping your bees.
It is. It is. We're so lucky. And no agriculture. Like, I think a lot of we have mites, obviously. I'll talk about that in a minute. But so many of the challenges, like we don't have small hive beetle, we don't have wax moth, we don't have people spraying pesticides anywhere. Our bees are just healthy, and as much as I like to think it's awesome beekeeping that like makes it easy for us to keep them alive over winter, it's truly in large part just because of where we are, and that our bees aren't exposed to the same stressors as they are other places. We do raise all of our own queens for our hives. So in order to make our nukes in the spring, people want their nukes earlier than I can possibly raise queens. So we bring in queens for our nukes, but from then on, we make all of our own. This is following Ian's playbook, where we start to build up our battery of nukes so that we're covered for any losses, covered for any queen needs, and then whatever is not used kind of throughout the year goes into winter as a nuke, so that we've got those replacements first thing in the spring if we need them. So we've become very self-sufficient. The last time we bought any bees was 2018, and that was just to increase our hive numbers at that time.
What's your preferred method of queen rearing? Is it basically a massive overflowing box, a queenless starter? And then do you leave them in that, or do you move them to finishers, anything like that? How do you?
I don't use a finisher. So we use the like really big overflowing with nurse bees starter. And then as soon as they're capped, I pull them and put them in an incubator. And put another round in the starter, and I'll usually do 2 rounds before we have to give it a boost of some more nurse bees. And then we don't use the little mating nukes. I just put them straight into a 5-frame nuke box. They don't get a 5-frame nuke. Most of them just get like 1 solid frame of brood. So that I don't have to worry about it getting overcrowded for the summer. It's allowed to just kind of slowly build up.
Yeah, I think that's the key. When I used to raise colonies in little boxes as well, I used to use a system over here called Mini Plus, but it's a bit bigger than the Apiaries nukes, but it gives you more flexibility. But I was finding I still had the same problem where I had to transfer the queen at the end into another box with bees in, and you've got an introduction issue sometimes. So why not just put the same cell into at the start, and it all happens naturally? I think it's one of the best ways to raise nukes myself. Other people do it their way. They're producing more queens, as I said, but you're like me, producing your queens for yourself, and you're putting them in the nuke straight away, because that's either going to be sold in the nuke or used later on, and that's a great way.
Yeah, and usually even if we need that queen, if it's a failing queen or a hive swarmed and never requeened itself, whatever, if we need a queen, we'll usually just install the entire nuke, and it doesn't hurt to have the extra boost of bees as well.
No. Good.
I have just started getting my daughter into grafting this year, and she is loving it. I'm hoping that this becomes her way of putting herself through university, because I can't justify selling a queen for $50, but she is like thrilled by the idea. So we'll set her up with a little battery of mating nukes that she can just keep cycling queens through, because there is a demand up here and there is no one else kind of filling that. Anytime somebody needs a queen, they're buying it and paying for it to come shipped through Canada Post, which has risks. So yeah, I'm hoping that River, my daughter, will become kind of our local queen supplier for the small scale of beekeeping that we have up in this area.
Fantastic. Yeah, obviously, your daughter's probably got young eyes, so she's better at grafting than you already.
Yeah.
but you won't admit it, will you?
No, never. Yeah, here's our battery of nukes. We have a whole brick language that we use to communicate what's happening in a hive. So these ones standing are ready for a queen cell, so they're currently queenless. And then it just keeps growing all summer until we've filled all the nuke boxes, which also helps us with swarm control. We get the resources for these from any colony that is starting to show signs of swarminess. We'll just pull out a couple frames of resources, put in a couple blanks for them or empty drawn comb, and then that goes into another kind of row of nukes that I can put queens into.
Cool. And the bricks, so they're just the indicator for you at the state of the state of the colony.
Yeah, so queenless and ready for a cell. Flat has a virgin queen in it, or we're waiting for them to mate. As soon as she's a mated queen, it gets stood up on its side like this, and then we have a I don't know what the hell's going on diagonal brick.
what I call NFR, you can work out that for yourself. It's funny, you do get hives like that, don't you, where you just go, I can't work out what's going on here.
Totally, yeah. Check back next week, see if there's more.
Come back next week, yeah.
So here's my husband. We are a family business, even though I tend to be the face of it. This is my husband, Tavis, who has been the mastermind. He was the one, I didn't want bees at first. It was his idea. And I was quite reluctant. And then, of course, once I got hooked, I was full speed ahead and was like, oh, this is going to be my thing now, honey. Yeah. And then my son, Rush, who loves to run the smoker and maybe has a bit more potential to become the beekeeper in the future. My daughter's actually had a couple of bad allergic reactions. So we'll keep her to the... I find queen rearing a little less head in intense in the bees. Rush is more likely to become the true all-in beekeeper, but we'll see. Varroa, we don't have a lot of things up here, but we do have mites. And really, I can talk about our mite management strategy, but what the biggest game changer for me was starting to look at mite control as not individual events where we have a high mite load, we're going to deal with it, and then that event is over. It was looking at it on a whole year cycle. And I got there by using this Randy Oliver's mite calculator.
Yeah.
So here I have plugged in kind of what our typical treatments look like. So the oxalic acid pads give you this good 385% in a row, and then an oxalic acid treatment in fall. And sometimes we'll get away with that. And I love years that we can only use oxalic. Other years, if we need to, we'll use a formic treatment.
Okay.
But we tend to stick with just the 2 organic acids, and that has worked well for us for the past 5 years.
Sorry, carry on.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say, do you have broodless periods that you know when they're going to be broodless, that you can? Yeah.
Typically by Halloween we're broodless, so that's when we aim for our fall oxalic acid. So we really have to make a judgment call as we go from August and you're doing your last mite washes. What are they at, and can we hold on until that Halloween mite treatment, or if they're starting to creep up, do we need to throw a formic treatment on to make it? And some years we can and some years we can't. But then we always use the winter to get us back to low to no mites. So we have screened bottom boards. We'll do the Halloween oxalic treatment and look at the mite drop. If it was still high, then we'll do another one. If it was still high, we'll do another one. And then usually around this time of year, we'll do one final round and check bottom boards just to make sure that, we're all nice and low, so we can be sure that we're starting out this year kind of with a nice low line.
It must be that huge dilemma, isn't it, of if we don't do it, it's you're caught between a rock and a hard place, as I've said before, on all these things. But mites are just, Randy Oliver does say if you can control your mites, the rest of beekeeping is like, basically will look after itself. And I think that's kind of the most wisest kind of thing ever in beekeeping now. We have mites, like the same as you. We have Asian hornet, which is a real pain for us now. What I was getting at was, and I just completely forgot what I was going to say, but it's come back now. Is there any correlation, as far as you know? Well, not correlation so much, but it's not perhaps the right word. But does the lack of beekeepers around you help with your Varroa control, do you think?
I think it must. We do, and I think that when I watch some beekeepers and the amount of treatments they put on, like, I think I just can't even fathom what some other people have to deal with, Like, I can look and say, oh, my yard in one area tends to have higher mite counts because this guy with 5 hives doesn't treat. And that's a big problem to me. But to some others, it's nothing compared to what they're facing. And so, I think I find it hard, but then when I see just the constant trials that other people have, I think that we're quite lucky in this department as well.
I personally think that maybe you've got, it could be that you've got, your bees are pretty isolated, so they're not coming in contact so much with other viruses, and the loads are less when Varroa do their trick. That's kind of been proven in some areas, that are fairly isolated. So it's all such interesting topics but without real science, we don't know. But it's
and I think everything compounds, right? We're also not exposed to pesticides, and pesticides and viruses interact, and we we don't use antibiotics, and because our bees have always been our own and our frames have always been our own, they've not been exposed to that, and we know that impacts also like their overall immune systems, which interacts with pesticides and viruses. Like, there's just so many factors. And I think we've got it pretty easy when it comes to all of them.
No, I don't think you should be so modest, What type of general genetic do you try and use when you're doing your grafting? Do you select, or do you just bring in a breeder queen?
No, we select, but I wouldn't say we're terribly scientific about it. We have, I'm sad that I didn't share a photo of it. We have these little cards that we put on the back of our hives that basically have a bunch of like metrics, and you use a thumbtack to mark the appropriate one. And so we'll just look at the backs of those, and if it's a rock star with no mite count and lots of honey last year, then that'll be a breeder queen. So we don't track as much as some people, but we do just have our favorite hives, and we will choose from those kind of 10 favorite hives for that season.
And you tend to know them, don't you, over the season before you go, I'm looking forward to going this one, because you go and it's beautiful and there's loads of brood and it's prolific and brings in a ton of honey and doesn't even throw a swarm cell. It's like she's the breeder.
Absolutely.
Okay, brilliant.
The queens that we bring in for our nukes, we tend to get 2 different kinds. One is Saskatraz, which is a Canadian breeding project, basically, where they're selected for Canadian success, but then sent down to California to mate, so they can mate earlier in the year. So we get those in, and they've performed really well for us. Or we like carniolans, so we'll get Pope Canyon carnies. Some years it just depends on what we can get our hands on for those, and then we'll usually keep about 10 every year. So we'll introduce 10 new queens into our genetics just to keep things kind of mixed and fresh.
And what about drones for your mating? Are you that far away from other colonies, or that's why the great thing is you've got such diversity in your own genetics?
Yeah, and we've set up our yard, so we keep 5 yards, and they're all kind of within mating distance
Okay.
of each other. So, yeah, they can get drones from another yard to mate
Okay.
with.
Do you augment your drones at all, or put in a frame of drone comb, nothing like that?
No, I haven't. I was almost convinced to try it last year, but it's kind of one of those, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah,
Like
I've
that
tried
thing's
it and I love it, and you get beautiful colonies building huge frames of drone. But because I'm kind of quite lazy, what I end up finding is that the frames turn up later on at the end of the year just full of honey, and
Right.
it's like, oh, you know, and you're like, I wish I'd yanked that out earlier, but you didn't want to yank it out because it still had some comb on. But it's not. You've got to be absolutely brutal with it, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. So the one thing that I would like to try, and I am also lazy, but maybe this is the year. Someone near us recommended using a drone frame, whether it's for mite mitigation or just for like drone augmentation in the spring, and then letting them fill it with honey, and then putting it top center in your second brood box going into winter full of honey. So it's food, it's just part of their food stores.
Yeah.
But in the spring, that's almost always the first frame that the queen lays up, and you'll end up with earlier spring drones so that
That's
you can
interesting.
start your
Yeah.
mating in the spring.
That's interesting.
I know. So I'm tempted to try that because I would love to get some queens mated earlier. Of course, then our problem is just going to be weather.
But it does help you cover some colonies that have requeened early that get mated better.
Yeah.
So I always love to leave a drone colony in, you know, like a queenless colony. In if I know it's not going to make it, I'll leave it in the apiary until September, knowing that there's a few extra drones around, just to hope that you might get another colony over the line.
Yeah.
You know. But it's interesting you talk about feeding. I was going to ask during that dearth period, is there any other you haven't got robbing from other bees that upset your own bees then, so they're too far from generally from other colonies, or do they interrob?
They interrob if we're not feeding. So that's one of the bigger reasons that we do continuously feed, is just to cut down on the need for robbing, you know, if they're all content with what they have. And we don't end up with too much robbing pressure from outside. So the feeding really helps us.
Okay, sorry. So you start feeding in September, and usually you kind of stop. Did you say mid-October?
Usually beginning of October. Last year we had a pretty warm fall, and I think we went into October and still had to keep feeding. But we'll feed for as long as the bees are flying. And for us, it's more, I have less of a concern about our bees being robbed because our colonies tend to be pretty strong, and more of a concern about my hives going and robbing like the dead outs and the dying, like hobbyist hives around, and bringing back whatever nasties they've got.
It is. It's funny. We always find that colony that's being robbed by the bees around you, and you know straight away. You go, oh. You look at that landing strip, and there's all the little flecks of honey. You're like, well, that one's gone. You know, great. That's off the list for next year. What else was going to say that? So your bees then go through about 5 months of winter.
Yeah, by mid-October they're done flying. So October, November, December, January, February, and they'll start flying again in March sometime. So between 5 and 6 months of winter. And
you might have a flight within those times.
Yes, there will be cleansing flights. You know, through the fall, through November, they'll get a cleansing flight. February they should, except it's just been raining so much. I don't know how much they've got out this year. Yeah, but we do get little windows where they can get out.
And do you do what I do, and you go up to an apiary and you've got no beekeeping suit on and you can't resist looking under a hive, and guess what?
Yes.
You get stung.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Or just like rained on with bee poop.
Oh, right. So, yeah. Okay, so we've got an interesting question here. What about pollen patties? Do you use them? Are they important to you, or are they of no use? Have you ever used them, kind of thing?
Yeah, we have, and then we kind of stopped, and now this year we are going to use them again. We've always had some on hand, Usually where we use them is if bees are chugging along in the spring, they're doing well, there's natural pollen out, and then all of a sudden it's going to rain for a week and we know our bees can't fly. Then we'll put half a patty on just so that we're not like regressing in terms of brood production. This year, we're going to try just blanket pollen feeding. But again, we'll wait until they're naturally building up. So we're not trying to get ahead of them. We're just trying to like match the beginning of pollen availability. And especially because we get a lot of weathered in days. So we want them to have constant access to it.
It's a very difficult decision to make on that pollen sub issue, because first of all, it's good. Pollen sub is expensive, but it works, and they always take it down. But I've got the similar situation where we have, you know, normal spring, but the trouble is when we get the bees flying, there's always a ton of pollen coming in. It's amazing, but it's just getting that cold period, and you're in that do I don't I? And I've used it before, and I've seen honestly little or no overall of change in things. But where it does help us is we have the dearth, and I cage queens in the summer for 21, 25, 4 days. And then if because the dearth is still running, often just finishing when I release the queens, if I give them a pollen sub, then it really, you've got to get the timing right, and it's such a lot of work because you're like priming that colony for that queen to go like machine going low, and she does lay the most beautiful clean brood, you know. And then you've got all those nice nurse bees going into the winter, technically pretty clean. So, but I was actually talking to Ian Stepper about caging queens, and he could never do it in his setup. But I wonder, could you do it in yours? But, you know?
I'm sure we could, but we have not so far. Do you do it just for a brood break?
Yeah, well, we have a dearth every year as I say, our summer flow finishes basically mid-July, but we can start caging in the first week of July.
Okay.
And then there's nothing until the ivy starts in about mid-September. Sometimes it's late September, but we sometimes only have a week or 10 days of ivy, but it's so strong, the ivy flow, it fills everything up if we get it. We get it every year, but some years it's like a third of what it is other years. You know, some years you get 2 or 3 frames and the weather was so pants. But we're getting weather now that was like so warm this November that they'll still bring an ivy in. And we got farmers who plant facili and mustard as a green manure crop, which is great. So if it's right and we get rain, you can literally fill supers, but we don't because we leave it for the bees. We rather get our queens caged, get the new brood growing, and if we get those late flows, we leave them to plug up the nest so the queen slows down. And that seems to kind of help. Because if you keep feeding a little bit and not much, they'll just use it and keep brooding, you know. And if the weather's warm, but if you give them that whole lot, they bung it up. So when I release my queens, I give just like a litre of syrup a week or 2 litres of light syrup, like a bit like you do, but probably lighter because I'm so tight. And but then I know what's coming, and it gives them time to brood everything, and they do like 3 or 4 sheets of brood. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
But it kind of works for us, but I'm interested if other people could do it, because obviously with the other thing, Tropalaelaps coming, you've got any thoughts on that?
Fear a thought on that? I mean, I have a feeling it'll hit you before it hits us, but just wondering which access point it's going to come through into North America. Canada imports bees from a lot of different places. We only get queens from the United States, but package bees come from other places, and obviously that brings a huge risk with it. So I would like to think that it won't be us that introduces it to I don't mean us, I mean Canada. But the way that things are going right now, it likely will be.
The interesting thing is, with the modes of transport we have, I personally think it could turn up anywhere unexpected, and that's the worrying thing, you know. We're all kind of looking at the map, pointing fingers, and but I don't think that's really going to help anybody. And I think, as what happened with Australia, I don't think this pest, looking at the way it spreads, looking at the way it actually does damage, and with all the stuff we've seen from various presentations, I personally think we are going to have a big job on our hands. But you know, I'm hoping for 2 or 3 years before we get it, so we can hopefully get people where it is now. It's apparently in Turkey, but the poor beekeepers in Georgia who are really good beekeepers, and you see all their spec. They've got lovely colonies, double broods, all that. They know their beekeeping. They're not like Mickey Mouse on 2 or 3 frames and full of might. They're good technical beekeepers. They are really tearing the hair out already, by the look of it.
Yeah, and I have very little faith that it would be detected early here. When I just think of the number of people who, even have a hard time identifying a Varroa mite or are not regularly checking for them. And then at BTech, our Canadian conference a couple years ago, they handed around a little vial with a Varroa mite and a Tropalaelaps mite. And I always assumed that if there was some new pest in my hive, I would see it. But seeing how small that thing was kind of rattled my confidence. Like, ooh, I might not see that.
As I said before myself, I'm 100% agree with what you just said. I think it's the size that's it's gonna be so easy to miss.
Yeah.
Even on a queen and some bees, which it can stay on. It doesn't. We all hope that when I heard years ago about Tropalaelaps, and everyone goes, "Oh yeah, but it needs brood to survive, so you could just use a brood bait." I'm like, well, that's going to be fine. We needn't worry about it. Oh no.
Yeah.
So that's the worry. Yeah, it's terrifying. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I'm getting a little tickle in my throat. Oh yeah, social media. I think you had asked that about in the list of questions that you sent me. Community stuff, because I live so far north, I don't have a big community of beekeepers here. We don't have a local club or anything like that. I am a member of our provincial association, so I have some connection that way and get together with those people a couple times a year, but really most of my community happens online. I'm not a YouTuber, but I am on Instagram a lot, and that's where I've really found like my place. And then I make a point as much as possible to get out to bee conferences so that I can chat with people in real life. And I find that just so valuable to make those connections outside of the online space.
Yeah, it's just amazing when I've gone to NABI, the North American Honeybee Expo. I've been 3 times now. Or sorry, twice, I think. Yeah, I was going to go this year, but unfortunately I had to pull out because of family reasons. But I saw the people there, and I just missed that interaction, because you meet people year and you go, how is this? How did you get on last year? It is a kind of community that when you meet like-minded beekeepers like yourself, you got this common ground that you can always chat, and there's just so much information to share. Because no one knows the answers, but the great thing is we're all kind of humbled enough to kind of realize that we don't. Well, most people are, that we don't, and by sharing, we can hopefully break those barriers down.
Yeah. And of course, that's how I know you. How did we meet? It must have been Instagram, because I don't spend time.
Yeah, I think I sent you. I actually saw the other day. I sent you a recipe for thymol solution. Because I looked up emails, like, what's there? Oh, there it is. And then it came up, and I sent you this thymol. You probably didn't use it, but.
Yeah, and I remember, I know you from when I used to do lives with Matt and Mary. I think you were on some of our
that's right, on Instagram.
chats.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's right, yeah. Because they're doing something different now, I think. So I don't see them very often now.
Yeah. So yeah, part of the conferences is that getting to chat with people, and the beer after hours is always the most valuable part of showing up there and making those connections. I'm also just a huge bee nerd. So the academic stuff is what I live for. And I enjoy going for those reasons as well. So the conferences are really a highlight of my year wherever I get to end up. So I'm heading back to BTech, our Canadian conference, next week.
Oh, cool. How many conferences do you have in Canada every year? Is there kind of 1 or 2 main ones that you go to?
Yeah, well, I go to our provincial one, so British Columbia. Each province, I think most of the honey producing provinces anyway, have their provincial conference. And then our national conference, BTEC, jumps back and forth between an East Coast location and a West Coast. So I've only gone to the West Coast ones. I think I might try and go East Coast next year if I don't end up going to something further afield. But we don't have any of the like knobby where it's just a private venture kind of. All of ours are run by associations that put them on.
Cool.
Yeah. And when we're not beekeeping, life in the north is very much outdoors and active. So we ski, we hike, we paddle, we do tons of fishing, we forage for mushrooms. And then there's my little puppy dog that we just got at Christmas time.
Gorgeous dog.
Yep, a big floof. So
Floof. What breed is he?
He's a Bernedoodle, a Bernese mountain dog and poodle.
Oh, cool. Lovely. Yeah. Now you've got a total, well, I would say idyllic life, but it's always the silly thing to say because you work it to live there, and you can't just turn up there and not. You reap what you sow. That's what I mean. You know, and you enjoy life a bit like I do here. You're in your own niche, and it works for you, and it looks great. You know, it's brilliant. Yeah,
it is. I'm so thankful to be where we are and for the life that we have. There's a lot of people who wouldn't enjoy being so far north, but it's paradise for us.
Yeah. No, thanks. Those photos are amazing. Was anything else I haven't asked you because there was a couple of questions, but I think we've covered most things. If you want, we'll wrap it up there, but I just want to say thanks ever so much, Christine, for coming on and sharing your like wonderful bee business there. I mean, I just think it's like almost idyllic, you know, but I know it's not your side. You've got to work. I know how it is, but it comes across really well and really nice. So thanks ever so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So, no, you're welcome. So you've got another 4 or 5 weeks of looking at bees and hoping, or?
Yes. Do you guys have Groundhog Day? We had Groundhog Day.
No, we don't, but we follow the American one. But I hear the groundhog died.
Well, Canada has its own.
Oh, right. Okay, cool.
Yeah, but our groundhog said 6 more weeks. So yeah, we're still waiting.
All right. I'll be interested to follow that. Send me the link, will you? Is it Pensatoni Phil in America? They have?
Yeah.
Pensatoni? Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. Well famous. But anyway, we're going to ring off there. I just want to say thank you to everybody for joining us. And obviously, thank you to Christine. It's been absolutely marvelous seeing you all. We'll be having other chats soon. I've got Cayman Reynolds coming in a week Monday before I go away to the beekeeping show. And we've got the beekeeping show in the UK. That's our show that we're all going to be kind of, I go over from France to that for the week. So that'll be good fun. Anyway, thanks very much. Hopefully we'll have a guest on next week and I'll update you on that very soon. But once again, thanks, Christine, and have a fantastic season.
Okay, you too. Bye.